welcome to Katrina's Creations. Today's Wednesday video is going to be a tutorial for a knitted sweater. This is actually the flax light, but it could be any sweater that you're working on. And we are going to be doing the sleeves. Now, in not all sweaters, but in a lot of sweaters, you actually knit the bodice, this part, including the sleeves at the same time, and then the sleeves get held on reserve yarn, or in my case I have stitch holders that they are held, then you knit the rest of the body and you go back and you pick up those stitches to do the sleeves. So this is what it looks like. Here is where the bodice ends, and here is the sleeve. This right here would be the underarm section, and these sleeves, as you can see, are being held on a stitch holder. You could also hold them, just like I said before, on reserve yarn, which would just be threaded through and tied off. You can do either. But the first thing you're going to do is going to transfer the stitches off of the stitch marker and onto a needle. Now I'm going to turn the camera around so that we can look at this a little bit closer, because there's a specific way that you want to put those stitches on. So let me get the camera turned around and we'll get started. All right, we're going to look at the stitch holder itself. And when you look at your stitches, here's where it opens up right here to slide them back on. Now stitches, let's see if I can get this nice and close. They have two like legs that straddle over the top of the knitting needle, or in this case the stitch holder. And you can see there is a front leg and a back leg. So there you can see it. You want to make sure that the right leg of the stitch is what is going over the front. There you can see it really, really well. So when you transfer to the knitting needle, you want to make sure that the stitch stays in this order. If you were to get them reversed and have the left portion in the front, it would create a twisted stitch when you went through and knitted it. So your stitches would look backward or twisted. So we're going to get started. The first part I am going to be doing is transferring all of these stitches onto the needle. And I'm going to slide them through, hopefully a couple at a time. So I am slipping them, as you can see, purl-wise, meaning I'm going in to the front here and just sliding them over. And you can see that I am keeping my stitches with the right leg of the stitch in the front. There's the back leg back here, front leg here. The right side is your front portion of the stitch. So if you want to pause the video while I transfer all of these stitches, I'll show you the next portion. I'm now down to the last 4 stitches. So I'm going to slide those on there. There we go. So I'm all done with my stitch holder at this point. Now I'm going to attach my yarn. So this is the yarn I was using, and I'm just going to go into that last stitch here. And I'm using a small crochet hook. It's a little bit easier. I want to leave plenty to weave in when I'm finished. So I'm just going to go in here and tie it into place. There we go. Now the pattern that I am using and the size that I am using wants me to pick up a total of 14 stitches at the underarm section. So here is my underarm section. Get this other needle out of the way. Now you want to pick up the stitches with the right side facing you, because if you pick it up from this side, you're going to have a funny little ridge. So with the right side facing you, you are going to begin picking up stitches, and you're going to go through with your crochet hook, grab your yarn, pull it through and onto your needle. Now you want to make sure this first stitch here is really tight, especially when you first knit it, or you're going to have a little hole at that join. Now if you look at this, you can see that there is a space in here. This isn't a hole, it's just where the stitches have gotten pulled a little bit. You might have to go back afterwards. I tend to go back and put some reinforcing yarn through here and just kind of weave it in a little bit when you finish, because you'll see I have one at each side. And what that is, it's just where you stopped and bound off these stitches, it's caused a loose stitch right in here on both sides. So if you knit your sleeve and you still see that in there, just go through a second time with a darning needle and just reinforce the underarms, and you can pick up and kind of weave in those ends. I do the same thing on my socks as well. So there is stitch number 1. So we're going to go into the next one. So here's going to be stitch number 2, and you're going to slide it onto your needle. And again, you want to make sure you're sliding it on, not twisting the stitch as you do it. So we'll do number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. And number 7. So that's half of the 14 stitches that I need to pick up at the underarm. I should be about halfway through the underarm section at this point, which I am. And I'm going to put a stitch marker here, because this is going to begin the beginning of my row as I start going around the sleeves, because you want your seaming, not so much seaming, but you want your joins to be on the underarm, so they're not going to show as much. So especially if you're still continuing with a pattern or anything like that, you want it to be on the underarm. So you want to put a stitch marker at the center, and now I'm going to do the remaining 7 stitches. This yarn I am using has linen in it. It's a little splitty at times. So that would be stitch number 8. Nine, 10, 11, 12, 13, and here is the 14th stitch. And you can see when I hold this together right here, you can see where the binding started, because this right here is one of those loose sections, which is where I'm going to pick up. And like I said, I will put a reinforcing yarn through it when I finish. So let me go through and count my picked up stitches to make sure that I have 7 past the marker, and I do. So now I am ready to begin knitting my sleeve. My cables are a little long for these sleeves. You could do these with double pointed needles, but for the sake of a tutorial, it's just a little more confusing to be doing that. So I am just doing it kind of as a magic loop at this point. Now you'll notice in this case, my yarn is actually on my left needle. I'm going to put this through here, and that first stitch, we're just going to go ahead and knit. Now my yarn is on the correct needle. I could have actually put my stitch marker at that last of the 14 stitches, but I didn't. I just put it in the middle. So now I am officially starting. So here would be row number 1. And from here on out, you would follow the instructions for your pattern, for however long it is, or how the bind off or the cuff, you know, with the ribbing would be, depending on if you're making a long sleeve or a short sleeved. And then, as I've said before, the very next, when I finish the sleeves, I will actually go back and put a reinforcing seam underneath the arms to make sure that that's all tight, that there's no holes or anything, because it can pull and look a little strange. So that is how I would handle that. So there you go. You can see that all of the stitches are back on the sleeve, and you can see right here why I'm saying to reinforce your sleeves. Right underneath here. And this yarn is a little difficult anyway, because as you can see, with this being a linen, it has some thin points and some heavier spots, so it kind of makes the stitches look a little strange at times. But yeah, when I'm finished, I will go through and just reinforce, especially these edges in here, to make sure everything is held together. It just gives a little bit more strength to your garment, especially since your sleeves are going to be taking a lot of wear and tear with sliding your arms in and out. You want to make sure that you're not going to be ripping anything out or making any of these enlarged stitches look larger. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have, please give me a thumbs up, and I will see you again on Saturday. Thanks again for watching. Bye, everybody.